entire operation. He was on a phone, he was communicating, carrying out all the duties as head of state, which is, farcical. A man in his mid-70s who's being operated to literally need to be on the phone talking, telling people orders. So we know that there's something not quite right here. Secondly, they tend to plan around him very, very specifically. The very fact that they didn't break at the top of the hour, that this is not something that they had planned out, is clear. Third, and I think very important, is the sort of timeline that they've given him. Reagan was shot in his early 70s. Within a week, he was standing in his balcony and waving. The truth is, here they've said that he's going to be out of commission for 2 months. 2 months is a long time, even if you're 80 years old, as he is, to not make public appearances for a guy who, in essence, the state revolves around him. That may indicate two things. Clearly, he may have died, and they need some time to restructure and get people in the right positions before they do anything, or that he could have had a stroke, a debilitating stroke. Fidel has suffered from minor strokes, which has paralyzed parts of his face. On other occasions, he disappears for a week or two, doing different things, and once his facial features have recovered or his walking is back, they put him back out there, and he's the Energizer Bunny. He just keeps going. Clearly, there's something here that's amiss, and it's obviously something quite serious, because in the history of the regime, this has not been a typical posture.
Joe, you've given us so much to work with here. Let's pick this apart. First of all, Raul Castro, if we're talking about weeks or months where there is no sighting of Fidel Castro, does he hold this together? Does he have the wherewithal? Does he have the loyalty of the military and the folks in government to be able to do that? Or is there a concern that perhaps not?
Well, I think to think that Raul Castro is now powerful is to live in fantasy land. This guy's the head of the Cuban military, has been for the same amount of time that Fidel's been head of state. He also runs the intelligence sector, which he took over after Ochoa's collapse. So it's a combination of, in essence, being the head of the military as well as the CIA. And on top of that, Raul runs a very important part of the economy, which is the dollarized part of the economy. All the economic life of Cuba, in other words, all of their business relationships with abroad, as well as their business relationships with the exile community, the tourist industry, all of that falls under Raul Castro's purview. So he is, in essence, he's a combination of the chief of staff of Cuba, the chief economic officer, Warren Gates, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. I mean, in essence, he's got all the money. So clearly, he's going to be able to keep things in order for a while. And I think we have to remember something, and it's kind of depressing. Never has a high-level official of the Cuban government ever defected. And I want you to understand and take a step back. They have all either been people who have been out of the circle of power that had then defected, or people who were seen as having passed their prime and then they decide to leave. But no one in the structure of Cuban power has ever defected. No top official, no second, no third. No one, in fact, in the top 20 tier of this government. So clearly this government has an internal discipline, and they're there. And I want to tell you something else, which I think it's been alluded to things that have happened in the past. If you recall when he fainted, when he was making his speech in El Cotorro, what was fascinating is because he has a totalitarian regime, you can't plan around him. In other words, George Bush, if something happens to him, the Secret Service has planned, we do this, we do that, we call these people, this is what happens after. A very organized succession of events take place. But because Fidel Castro is a totalitarian autocrat, you're not allowed to plan without Castro. And so you notice that when he fainted, no one knew what to do. The security guards pulled out machine guns, other people pulled out covers, bulletproof covers to cover him, and in essence, here's a man falling down. They were picking him up and moving him around because he didn't know what to do. And in fact, to the podium rushed the Secretary of State and screamed, "Long live Raul," almost like it's a monarchy ending, and they were picking the next guy, because you cannot plan without them. And then finally, Raul is not a spring chicken either. I mean, Raul has suffered from serious internal problems physically because of his age. He's an older man. He is known to have a serious liver problems because he has a propensity to drink. But there is no question that within the Cuban structure, there is only one designated successor, and that has always been the case. And Raul, which has been Fidel's lieutenant from the Sierra Maestra the first days of the revolution.